I am a strong advocate or proponent of youth in trade being peace builders. But why aren't people giving a critical lens to this sect of people who are brave enough to go make money where bullets are passing over their heads? What is out there is that the AfCFTA is a development partner's idea. That even our own government officials are like, no, let's wait for so and so development partner to give us money to organize a workshop. And yet they forget it's their own president, their own government that has signed and ratified, not the development partner. Kenya launched what they call a hustler fund. The Kenyans will argue at how much they are receiving from that hustler fund, but
good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining us from, and welcome to Tek4Peace Africa. This is a platform that uses technology to promote peace through conversations across the continent. And on today's video, we're going to be discussing about the nexus between trade, peace building, youth, and technology across the continent. And on today's video, we have a special guest today with us here. He is a public figure, big in Africa because of what he does. He's a chairperson of a very vibrant organization, I'd say, which I am a member. But first, we want him to introduce himself so that we do not either overpraise him or probably butcher his CV. Welcome.
Thank you. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening from where you're watching this video from. And my name is Emolot Allan David, and I do chair the council she's talking about. It's the Independent Continental Youth Advisory Council on the AfCFTA, or the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. So in short, the AfCFTA. So it's mainly a youth-led body that was instituted to champion youth interests and to foster youth inclusion in the AfCFTA implementation processes. And it's a council that has 54 chapters in all the 54 member states who have signed and all ratified the AfCFTA agreement. And the AfCFTA Youth Advisory Council is a membership-led, mainly young people, and of course we also blend in the women aspect of it. But it's really a pleasure joining in today.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Now, we have just heard of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, or rather the AfCFTA, but I don't think that majority of us who are actually beneficiaries or could benefit from this agreement know what it truly entails and how to go about leveraging on the opportunities that exist. So first of all, what is it? And secondly, how can we leverage on the opportunities that exist, especially for young people across the continent?
Thank you. Truth be told, you're right, that the AfCFTA, or the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, is one of the biggest African Union instruments that has quite a lot of member state support. But unfortunately, there is very little known about it in the broader citizenry of the African continent. And reason being is because of the challenges that are associated with the implementation processes, which is of course mainly information dissemination. Mm-hmm. So most of our young people who are actually the beneficiaries who this agreement targets to benefit don't really have much information about the agreement, because it's looked at as an elite kind of African Union instrument. But what we are trying to do now as the council is to localize the AfCFTA in every local language: Swahili, Yoruba, Shona, and all these other languages, so that our young people can then be able to understand, including, by the way, Amharic, the Ethiopians, the big population of youth, also now have it localized in their local language. So maybe the good question is now, what is this African Continental Free Trade Agreement? So the AfCFTA, as I've mentioned, is an African Union instrument, and it's an instrument that the African Union put in place to foster economic integration of the African continent. It has quite a bit. It has quite a number of objectives, which includes a free open market where our young people trade freely across the continent. And I think that's where we are championing it so much. And it also has a customs union as kind of a futuristic long-term plan of the objectives of the agreement, to see that we have one customs union as the African continent. But bare minimum for our youth consumption, is an agreement that opens the borders, continental borders, for our young people to trade from one country to another. And it has quite a number of protocols that lead to its successful implementation. And one of the protocols that is dear to our young people is currently the Protocol of Women and Youth in Trade, that as I speak, the Council of Ministers has passed it, and it's waiting for adoption by the heads of state this year in February during the heads of state meeting. The member states should already adopt it. Then we will have, as young people, our own protocol that then safeguards our own interest in the implementation process of the AfCFTA. The AfCFTA is the only African Union instrument, as it stands, that enables our young people to directly have money in their pockets by trading. And by trading, I mean you don't require a degree. All you need is the language for the money. Do you understand trading? Can you exchange goods? We had barter trade, but now the AfCFTA is making it easier by just saying we are removing barriers to trade. The non-tariff and tariff barriers that have been holding us back as young people, we are now removing all those blockades and we are letting you trade freely. As long as you meet the requirements. You meet the requirement, the standards of the country, of the goods they need in that country, you trade freely with less costs associated to the taxation. That's what the AfCFTA offers.
But now there's a challenge that I foresee as an individual, and I believe that probably the audience has picked up on it. We're talking about costs and we're looking at integration. So the first challenge for me would be, as a continent, we do not have one currency. So how does the AfCFTA come in to address that particular challenge, whereby the currency is different and some currencies are stronger than others? So if I'm trading from one country to another, yet the currency in my country is weaker, it means I have to incur more, probably. And secondly, when we're looking at integration and opening up borders, we have porous borders at the same time, because African countries, majority of them being third world countries, we have issues with conflicts, whether internal or some external, and refugees spilling over into the neighboring countries. So you're not just looking at trade, but you're looking at security and peace. That is where peace comes in. So how do we address that?
Well, thank you. And I think that is really a good question. And the discussion of currency is one that has been at the center of the AfCFTA implementation, being one of the hindrances to its full implementation. But interestingly, this is what the African Union has done, and the AfCFTA Secretariat, working with partners, went ahead to launch a platform called the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. And this PAPSS in brief. The PAPSS is ideally meant to be an exchange platform where you as a young trader, you as a woman in trade, you don't need to actually use exchange dollars to buy Ghana cedis. You don't need to struggle as much to buy dollars, to buy maybe Ugandan shillings. All you need is paying. So the platform enables you as an individual to just be like, okay, how much is what I'm carrying? And how, can I pay the other person? How much do you need? And the person says, I need this much. So the platform will enable you to just type in your Kenyan shillings and click send, and automatically it converts that money into the local currency, the other side. And what is happening right now, the PAPSS is having membership from different central banks and different commercial banks. They are all coming into the system to aid the process. Ideally meaning the normal rates, the normal bank rates that we see are actually lesser when you use the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. And that is a system that is actually currently helping reduce the challenge that we as the implementers and advocates of the AfCFTA were facing. Those questions are actually tough to answer. But now we have the PAPSS, and it's even making it more easier and more simpler. And as I speak, it's being piloted. In West Africa, already there's trading happening in Nigeria, Ghana. People are using actually the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System to actually exchange and do their trading. So there is already a step in the right direction. How is the rule of person benefiting in the AfCFTA? So the AfCFTA is just, it's an instrument that enables you to trade. But there is a whole value chain that has different players. And the different players, for example, I will give an example of a farmer. So a farmer is part of the value chain of production of, you know, fruits or vegetables or whatever it is they are producing. So how does now the AfCFTA affect even a farmer? This person participates in the value chain by actually starting to grow the food. By the time the food has matured and it's now into the middlemen, who then eventually transport it and package it and take it to maybe a neighboring country, already the proceeds of that transaction will trickle down to him. So that is, some of them may not know that they're contributing to the AfCFTA. But when you explain to them, but by the way, your pineapples, someone in Nigeria is eating. And the money you got is actually part of the proceeds. That's when it actually makes sense. So the value chain is where the focus is. And that's where we have the bigger majority of our young people participating in. Women and youth in trade are participating so strongly in the value chain. They may not do the final trading, but they participate strongly in the production process of either a good or a service. Yeah,
I really like that. And I mean, that moves us to the next question, which I had initially asked. How does peace come to play? Because we still have conflicts within African states or driven by different factors. And we're looking at peace building, the platform being Tek4Peace Africa. And we have an issue of porous borders where we still have terrorism as an issue, or rather just politically driven conflicts or violence or civil wars. So if I am opening up my borders as country Tek4Peace, and I'm opening it up to country David, you are coming into my country and probably you have conflict or I have conflict in my country. That might spill over because you're interacting with people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different languages. We have a huge diversity of languages across Africa and cultures. How do we accommodate that and ensure that it does not fuel it, but it instead becomes a driver to peace building?
True. You know, I am a strong advocate or proponent of youth in trade being peace builders.
How can they be? Or
how can they be peace builders? This is the logic. This is how I summarize, and this is why I think as the council we are also passionate to launch the AfCFTA Youth Peace and Security Agenda project. It's as simple as this. You imagine it. In every country that has faced war, either civil war or external wars, you very well may know that trade still exists. Whether it's today, it's Gaza, as now, of course, now we have the Israeli Gaza. There are people still trading in that chaotic situation.
Even if it's just firearms.
Even if it's just whatever, but they are trading something. So that got us thinking. And the issue is that no one has really paid attention. What language of peace do these people use to actually be able to go to a conflict zone and trade? So that got me thinking, and I'm like, but why aren't people giving a critical lens to this sect of people who are brave enough to go make money where bullets are passing over their heads? And how can then we leverage? Then that's where the idea of having youth in trade as peace ambassadors came from. And your question is good. How can they become peace ambassadors? They are already peace ambassadors, but they just don't know it. The mere fact that a person can leave their country, leave their peaceful environment, and be able to cross the border with their goods, make sales, and come back, pick more goods, make sales, and come back. That alone tells you they speak the language of peace. Because there is no way a hostile person can go to a hostile place and come back alive. It's impossible. So what we now need to understand is, what is that language of peace do these traders who cross to go to violent extremist places speak, that we can leverage on and use it as a room or an opportunity to train more peace ambassadors, but through trade. And again, trade is a necessity. Like, we cannot do without trade. Ideally, meaning, even at war, even the rebels themselves, they will need produce, they will need food. So how can then we ensure that we take advantage of that power that trade has to foster peace? And that's where the council comes in. The council now wants to educate. We already have understood that there is a language these people speak. They are already brave enough. So how can then we use that language that they use? How can then we use that bravery that we use to then be able to take advantage of it and begin fostering peace in the process? It may not be an instant impact, but gradually, the more we have hundreds of people taking watermelons to a war-torn area, speaking the same language of peace, the change of heart comes in from the other adversary. The change of heart, the change of mind and tactic comes in.
But I'm curious. You see, the drivers of conflict and wars are due to various issues, some of them very deeply rooted within societies. For instance, being a Kenyan, I'd tell you that ethnic-driven conflicts are dated as far back as colonial times. Even when you look at Rwanda and the Hutus and the Tutsis, before the genocide, it was the systems that were created through colonialism that were established then that made one ethnic community or group feel superior than the other, and the other felt like they missed out on opportunities. But now the language of trade is more of a necessity and an immediate need, where if I need, as you said, even if I'm an adversary and I need food, I will not stop needing food. If I need a service, a doctor, medical support, and that is the trade that I'm going to take to the other country, I will still need it at the end of the day. So how then do we integrate that understanding of deeply rooted issues that are driving conflicts within particular regions and coming in to provide a service of goods that are needed without fueling? I feel like it's a very thin thread that we are hanging on, where I still understand the logic behind bringing in trade and peace building through it. I think it's amazing, but that seems like an ideal world. How do we break it down so that the traders truly understand that the problems that exist within that community, in that region, that are driving the conflicts or the war there are deeply rooted? Eliza, we must understand their culture first. Can you capacity build people really on another person's culture and their problems when we have not even been able to solve our internal problems as a country?
Yes. The truth is that you're raising a valid question, and I think that's where this discussion becomes more even interesting. When you look at trade and the traders themselves, their own entirety, they are external players. Usually the drivers, and for example, if it's a civil, you gave the Hutus and the Tutsis.
Yeah.
You very well may know the people actually who were even benefiting from that war were the neighboring countries who were actually trading with goods. So usually in a war conflict area, you may not want to trade to your adversary, but an external player is the one who will come and trade.
Yeah.
So the idea here is to see these external players who are now young traders coming into trade. How can they? They seem, during time of conflict, everyone wants to have the ear of an external party, and in this case, it's easier for the adversaries to sit down and agree with an external party compared to even sit down and agree with their own enemy. So the idea is to see that when these external parties happen to go and meet through trade, through what they're doing, let them be able to channel the word of peace, or be able to be advocates of peace through that. And I know they don't only meet one side; they will also meet another side.
Yeah.
So the idea is these external traders then become the vessels of peace. It's also a targeted training campaign where we also educate. So the idea is to see that we also have a specific curriculum tailored to empower these youth in trade who are actually crossing the border.
I absolutely agree with that. Empowering impartiality, I say, whereby they do not support or second one side versus another.
Exactly.
But at the same time, we have seen the UN use sanctions and denying aid or access to goods and services, including food, to some countries simply because they're violating human rights. So the trade can also be used as a weapon. I mean, we can't answer right now everything, and we can't solve each and every problem. But I think this one will be interesting to watch, because we see international organizations use the same strategies to bring peace to countries, but in the reverse. And now we're doing it the other way around, which creates room for possibility. But I mean, using youth, who are the majority of the African population, is a great strategy. I'm sure that with that we will not fail.
The future of the African continent is mainly hinged on the young people.
Yeah. And
it's hinged on the young people's participation in every aspect of the continent's growth and development, socio-economic and cultural, political, all those aspects, religious, all those aspects that make what a society is a society requires our utmost participation as the young people. And right now the African continent is at a point where coups, if you wake up one morning, there's an attempted coup.
Yeah.
There's an attempted coup. But in the middle of those that attempted coup are the young people. The casualties are the young people. And you know, and the biggest challenge again is, at the end of the day, the futures are crippled so much are for the young people. The generals, at the end of the day, when they go negotiate, they are negotiating to cease fire at the top. But the economic inequalities, the poor infrastructure, talk of the whole dilapidated system will not be reconciled. It will never be the same. And that's why the council wants to encourage our young people to desist engaging in violent extremist activities, because it has long-lasting impacts, not to the generals who are already at the latter stages of their lives, but to us who have over close to 80 years, 60, 70 years on this planet.
Yeah.
So the goal of the AfCFTA Youth and Peace and Security Project is mainly to ensure that we, as the young people who are fostering economic integration of the continent, become #1 peace drivers. Because with peace at the helm, what the slogan we use at intra-African trade is equals to peace and security. With peace at the helm of what we are doing, we will trade freely, make more money, prosper economically, the income per capita will increase, we will see healthcare improve, we will see everything improve. And at that point, we will see a crop of our young people who are capable of contributing to the Africa we want, a peaceful and prosperous Africa, as mandated by the Agenda 63, that Aspiration 6, that mainly says that the African continent will be built by the young people and the women. And that's what we want right now, to ensure that our youth understand this, the magnitude of why they should be peace ambassadors, especially the youth in trade, because it's proven that they will always go look for that money, even in the war-torn area. So how can we then leverage that to then make sure that we have strong ambassadors who are already resilient by the fact that they are going there?
Yeah.
So how can we take advantage of that to ensure that they carry the flag of peace as they go to that country?
But now that brings up such an interesting perspective. We are talking about young people, and initially we mentioned that the reason as to why very many Africans, and the majority of them being young, do not leverage on the AfCFTA is because there's, I wouldn't say there's lack of information, but the access to credible information on the AfCFTA or about the AfCFTA has not yet trickled down to community levels. So how can technology aid or facilitate or enable the processes towards developing Africa through trade and ensuring that we have sustainability and peace?
The one thing I would want to state, and I think this is one thing that our audience should also be able to know, that the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement is a member state-led agreement. At the moment your country signs and ratifies the agreement, the duty, the sole number one duty, is no longer on the African Union, it's no longer on the development partner, it's no longer even on the Youth Council. The duty number one is on the state party that has signed and ratified to ensure her people understand the AfCFTA, her people take advantage of the AfCFTA, The country aligns its national development plans and policies to suit the AfCFTA. The country is deliberate at even setting aside or instituting committees that ensure that they implement this agreement to the dot, starting from the grassroots level. And awareness is number one. That the country ensures that her people get to understand that what they have signed and ratified is no longer an elite boardroom signing. It now comes back from that African Union Heads of State Summit to down the local people. What that requires is for heads to be rolling at the government structures. Ministry of Information, National Guidance, Ministry of Youth, Ministry of Trade, all of them should be singing from the same script of we now have an agreement that our majority, who are the young people, can leverage and benefit from. That's where the conversation should start from. And what is out there is that the AfCFTA is a development partner's idea. That even our own government officials are like, no, let's wait for so-and-so development partner to give us money to organize a workshop. Let's wait on so-and-so development partner to give us money to develop a national implementation strategy. And yet they forget it's their own president, their own government that has signed and ratified, not the development partner. So we need to create an awareness in our own people to demand from their own governments, not the development partners, not the council, but their own governments, to be like, you signed this, you ratified this, help us achieve it. Give us the loans as young people to take advantage of this agreement that you've signed and ratified. The moment we create that civic responsibility in the minds of our young people, that will be the beginning of economic prosperity at that level.
How do we do that? How do we create that awareness when it's not being driven by the same people who ratified?
And that's what the council is doing right now. We are now empowering every young person to tell them, now even you now who has listened to this video that and watched it, that the duty and the onus is also on you to now be like, okay, now I know that the agreement is member state-led. My country has signed and ratified. So let me now go and demand. You can now make these demands valid because it's a legal instrument that binds your country. So you can now make these valid instruments valid arguments to your country. Give us loans to enable us scale up our production to meet the demands of the intra-African market. Give us technical support. Bring us trainers. Bring us production materials to be able to up. We now need to begin making demands as young people in trade to our government because they have already signed and they have committed themselves to be better to supporting us to trade. That's where we need now to begin the conversation.
Is there a country that at least has made progress towards empowering its population, especially the young people, in matters leveraging the AfCFTA to their benefit as a country and to the benefit of the continent?
No,
Do we
very
have a
good
benchmark?
Yeah, we have a very strong benchmark. I'm in Kenya now.
Really?
I'm in Kenya
I
now.
think Kenya is the benchmark.
I will tell you the truth.
Then we're doing very badly as a country.
I will tell you the truth.
I know there's progress.
Yes.
But
yes,
please, Kenyans, he's Uganda, but please, Kenyans, do comment. Are you a beneficiary of the AfCFTA? I know we have taken strides.
Yes.
Or maybe the idea backing or being sold through the agreement, because I've read it, and the protocols in it are huge and wide. And we have done 0.5%.
Yeah. No, there is Kenya now. And in Kenya, why I'm looking at Kenya now, and why I'm using Kenya as an example, is that they've actually been able to already trade.
This is Kenya that Tanzania has closed airlines from.
Yes. Kenya was among the very few countries that formed part of the pilot study, the guided trade initiative of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. And they were capable of even trading tea with Ghana, and Rwanda joined in, and Cameroon joined in, and Tunisia joined in, and those first countries that piloted. Kenya was a beneficiary. And why am I even referencing back to Kenya? Kenya launched what they call a hustler fund. The Kenyans will argue at how much they are receiving from that hustler fund, but it's a step it's an intentional effort by the government to provide access to cheap loans for their youth in trade to be able to scale up their production or to be able to contribute something to their own businesses to then match the regional trade. And as I speak, I have examples of young Kenyan traders who have actually gotten their certificates of origin and been able to trade. Physical, these are not lies. They are Kenyans who have actually gotten their certificate of origins and taken advantage of the AfCFTA. There are colleagues, even in the council here, we have a young, vibrant business lady who works on body lotions and soaps and so on, Jennifer. Jennifer Ewenam has actually been able to also get a certificate from Ghana. So Ghana, Kenya have been very intentional at ensuring that they integrate the AfCFTA, they integrate their local national planning policies into matching the AfCFTA requirements. We also have Ethiopia. What did Ethiopia do? Ethiopia said, no, for us, we're not going to wait for anyone else to come and tell us. We are localizing this agreement in the language that our people understand. And we have the whole agreement in Amharic. The whole agreement in Amharic. And now our young traders in Ethiopia can understand, what is this something that our Prime Minister signed? What is this agreement? And they understand it and they're like, okay, we are going to begin taking our hides. We are going to begin taking our produce, our cotton. We are going to, our coffee, it's big in coffee. It's the mother of coffee is Ethiopia. They are going to begin. They are now awakening. Now they also have the Ethiopia Airlines giving discounts on goods under the AfCFTA being exported to another African country. There's already a discount. Rwanda Air is also doing the same. So you see that intentionality.
Yeah.
So there is already that level of intentionality, and there's already some success. And I'm telling you, if our member states give access to affordable loans to our young people to scale up their production, to also make their ideas, business ideas, a reality, believe me, 2030, not 2063, 2030, the agenda 2063 will be achieved in 2030. At least we will see bigger push and progress in attaining that agenda. Then maybe lastly, back to your question on tech. How does then tech become a big issue? How does tech play? What role does tech play?
Yeah, in driving trade, development and sustainability as well as peace.
You very well, I should now interest you that, you know what, within the AfCFTA framework, we have the protocol on digital trade, or the e-commerce.
Yeah.
And why was it launched? During COVID-19, we saw what COVID did. Everything crashed. Everyone was supposed to work, is now working online.
Yeah.
But people were still trading. And it made our young people ingenious that you can actually change a pile of 20 pairs of clothes in 10 seconds. And someone can be like, oh, I need at 0.5, I need that dress. How can I get it? You package it and you send. We saw the power of connectivity during that time. And with that, it led to the creation of the protocol of women, or the protocol on digital trade, or the e-commerce. And what does it ensure to do? It ensures that our African young people leverage on the opportunity that tech has to offer. So tech plays a very integral part, and tech has enabled us to connect. Now there are millions of our young people who are going to watch this or watching this video, and they're already listening to this through tech.
Yeah.
So the idea is now, what we are trying to do is to see, again, back to our member states, that the 21st century is the highly connected century ever.
Across the globe.
Across.
But we still have a problem in Africa where we can do better in terms of connectivity.
Yes.
And making sure that access to internet, bundles especially, is cheaper, because we have countries that have some of the most expensive bundles, which becomes, it's taking money from young people instead of enabling young people to trade.
True. And that's where the call to our member states again comes in. And I'm not tired to talk about member states, because they are the ones who generate these policies. They are the ones who are focused on getting a lot out of taxes from these telecom companies. They have the power to say, we don't want this much. You cut to this law for our young people to be able to access this data. They did it on ensuring that there is no data that now doesn't expire. We now see long-lasting data, forever data. If they are capable of doing that, why can't they be also capable of reducing the tariffs on internet? And that's where our call is. The ministries, different ministries of the African continent, Ministry of Finance, Information, whichever ministry is in charge of that data bit, those are the people we need to begin focusing on to ensure a targeted campaign is launched to ensure that the data is reduced. And I know telecom companies will argue in terms of operational cost is expensive. We're also asking our governments not to make the licenses also too expensive.
Yeah.
Because the more they make licenses expensive, the telecom companies are also forced to push the cost to the young traders who are using Facebook, who are using TikTok, Instagram to trade. And also the other thing is also to do with blocking. We have countries that certain social media handles are blocked.
Well, your country.
We have countries, not only my country. We have countries where, so we also need to encourage that our members shouldn't
But that's all
block.
about interests, political interests that are interfering with development through the AfCFTA. So I think it's more of bringing all stakeholders to the table, especially states and civil society and youth together. Because, I mean, they're the drivers of this problem. So why did they block some of the social media platforms? It's all about interest and access to information. Because the moment you curtail or specifically feed a population only what you want them to access, then you control minds.
Yes.
Control of the media is control of a country. And now we have shifted from, or rather there's a huge shift from mainstream media to new media. This is new media, where I am a citizen journalist, having never been in a journalism class, but yet we are still able to communicate and reach to a particular audience. So the fact that we still have states that have huge control over the access to information for some people is taking us back instead of moving us forward towards sustainable development in Africa.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I don't want to add more because you literally have summed it up that, we need to have intentional governments who are focused on ensuring they leverage every opportunity. This demographic dividend, it's actually easier to achieve it when our members become very intentional at ensuring they use every driver. Tech is one of those drivers that can enable a country achieve its demographic dividend or leverage from its demographic dividend, who are the youth, of course. And we just need intentional people. And also we just also need, besides that, we also need youthful leaders to also be able to be part of the governance structures. Governance structures needs to have a representation of youth leaders who can then be able to translate their problems into policies easily without having to ask, do these young people really need this? Do they really need that? If you have a young person within the system, it's easier for them to actually know that this is one of the most top priorities of our young people, just like the internet is right now. And that's where we need to go. But I agree, governments and member states need to really do better as it stands.
One thing that clearly stands out is the need for awareness around what the AfCFTA is, its benefits, as well as electing, because majority of African states are democratic, theoretically, that is, yours included, theoretically. So we have got to be intentional about the kind of leaders that we elect, because then that translates into our ability to leverage on that already ratified agreement. And we still have a serious problem of voter apathy among young people. So what's your word of, advice on that? Because young people, at least in my country, a significant portion tend to seclude themselves from political processes because they don't believe that they have true power. So, and I stand with the statement that not voting is already making a choice for the bad leader that you do not want. So why do you think we still have that? And how can we get young people to be interested across the globe, across Africa especially, on political processes?
I think it's a very good thing, and it brings into issue of financing some of these initiatives, like especially the council that we run, to enable quicken the dissemination processes. So if we have funding that that is good enough for us to be able to do targeted and focusing, it will be easier for us actually to leverage to ensure that the information reaches the grassroots, but most importantly, the right information reaches the grassroots. But the moment we are also incapacitated financially, it makes it very hard for us to also be able to support the process. Because ideally, we, the young people, can easily be listened to by the young people. The goal is just to a call to action to our development partners to support, and our governments to support the council, and also our government to be intentional at going out. Then it will be easier for us to be able to move forward.
That's true.
Yeah.
All the best to us. Clearly, I am part of this process. Thank you very much for coming to Tek4Peace Africa. I enjoyed having this conversation with you and creating awareness through this platform. It's a form of advocacy initiated by me, us here today. Guys, please do like, subscribe, and share. Do you want to see David again here? He's from Uganda. So all Ugandans, welcome.
Yeah, please.
Karibu Kenya.
I represent Africa. So please, all of my people, West Africa, North Africa, Central, East, and Southern Africa, and my friends from the island countries, Comoros, Seychelles, Madagascar, Cape Verde, all of you, Sao Tome and Principe, all of you, please join in. Let's amplify this video. Let's share it around, and let this message of the AfCFTA, the gospel of the AfCFTA, reach to every corner, and translate to them, please, if you can, if they cannot listen in English. The English language.
All right.
Asante sana.
Thank you. Guys, please do like, subscribe, share, and leave a comment down below. Share this with whoever needs it. As he said, let us amplify the message of the AfCFTA. So do follow Ikoyaka on all social media platforms. They have a website. Go check out the website, ikoyaka.org.
ikoyakaafrica.org.
Oh, ikoyakaafrica.org. Ensure you visit the website. There are a couple of different information. You can access information. And I know that various materials are going to be posted on how young people can leverage on the AfCFTA, as well as tap into Ikoyaka, the different announcement groups, if I'm not wrong, and country chapters on Ikoyaka.
And the other thing that we also want to highlight, that when you join the network, you will become the ambassador of the AfCFTA. You become a champion that then disseminates this information to the broader African audience. So it's a collective effort. We can't do this alone. The council is small, and the staff are very, energetic few people. But with you joining us, with you interested to join us, then it becomes easier. And I hope if you could share even maybe a WhatsApp link or something for the group,
in the description box.
Yes, and then you could be part of the broader the campaign to ensure that everyone from the African continent gets to understand the AfCFTA. The mission is bottom-up youth mobilization to take advantage of the AfCFTA, to put money in their pockets. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if you have stuck around until this time, it means that you've probably struggled with a little bit of background noise. We have been recording in school season, so there are buses in and out. But thank you very much for being patient and listening to us. Goodbye.